Imagine a community so radical, so full of genuine love, that people were selling everything they owned to share with each neighbors. This wasn't some utopian dream. It was the early church in Jerusalem, a place where generosity was the heartbeat of everyday life. People weren't forced, they were inspired. Among them were Ananias and Sapphira, a couple who owned a piece of land. They decided to sell it, a noble act following the spirit of the community. But as the money lay before them, Ananias found his initial resolve to give everything slowly crumbling. He saw the genuine sacrificial generosity of others, and a part of him yearned for that same pure devotion, that untainted praise. Yet, the sheer amount of money, a significant sum for their livelihood, became a heavy weight. A subtle, insidious voice whispered promises of security, comfort, and perhaps even a higher status achieved through cleverness rather than true sacrifice. His hands trembled slightly as he considered keeping a portion, the idea taking root, his commitment to radical honesty beginning to waver. Sapphira, his wife, witnessed this internal struggle and, rather than challenging it, perhaps subtly affirmed his growing desire to protect their own interests. Together, their shared ambition to appear righteous, while clinging to earthly security, solidified the deception. They held back a portion, and then, crucially, agreed to present the rest as the full amount, a decision born from a genuine desire for belonging, twisted by the fear of loss and the lure of false prestige. Ananias walked in, ready to present his offering, trying to project an air of pious confidence. But as he stood before Peter, the facade he had so carefully constructed began to crumble. The weight of his lie, already immense, became unbearable under Peter's piercing, discerning gaze. He could feel his deception laid bare, not just before Peter, but before the very spirit he sought to defraud. Peter, burdened by the spiritual integrity of this new community and filled with a divine discernment, looked him straight in the eye. It wasn't about the money for Peter. It was about the sacred trust within their fellowship. "Ananias," he said, his voice tinged with both sadness and authority, "why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and then to keep back part of the price of the land? While it remained unsold, did it not remain your own? And after it was sold, was it not at your disposal? How is it that you have contrived this deed in your heart? You have not lied to men but to God." Every word from Peter was a hammer blow, shattering Ananias' rapidly dissolving composure. The very ground seemed to shift beneath him as his internal world, built on a foundation of deceit, gave way. Peter knew that if such deception went unchecked, the very foundation of their new, spirit-led community would crumble. In that instant, Ananias fell down and breathed his last. A profound silence, then a wave of fear swept through everyone present. Young men carried him out for burial. It wasn't about the money, it was about the lie. It was about dishonoring the sacred truth that bound this community together. About 3 hours later, his wife Sapphira came in, completely unaware of what had just transpired. Or perhaps a seed of dread had begun to sprout as time passed, without Ananias returning. She walked into the assembly, and Peter, his heart heavy but his mission clear, gave her a chance to speak the truth. "Tell me," he asked, his gaze firm but inviting honesty, "was this the price you and Ananias got for the land?" But in that moment, Sapphira faced a crucial choice: confess her part in the deception or double down on the lie. The pressure was immense: maintain appearances, protect her husband's reputation, unaware it was too late, or save face before the community. The fear of exposure, the desire to preserve their carefully constructed image, ultimately outweighed the call to truth. And she, echoing her husband's lie, replied, "Yes, that was the price." Peter's response was chilling, not out of anger, but out of a deep understanding of the spiritual consequences of her choice. "How is it that you have agreed together to test the Spirit of the Lord? Look, the feet of those who have buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out." For Peter, this wasn't judgment. It was the unfolding of an inevitable spiritual law, a necessary cleansing for the purity of their fellowship. And just like her husband, Sapphira fell down at his feet and died. Again, young men carried her out and buried her beside her husband. This wasn't divine punishment for a small financial misstep. It was a stark, powerful revelation about the integrity required in a community built on truth and the Holy Spirit. Great fear came upon the whole church and upon all who heard of these things. The story of Ananias and Sapphira is a powerful reminder that our words and actions, especially when dealing with God and His community, carry immense weight. It teaches us about the sanctity of truth, the dangers of hypocrisy, and the profound respect due to God's Spirit. It's a story not to scare us, but to inspire us to live with open hearts and honest hands, honoring the sacred trust we share in faith. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and share.